All right, so let's keep going here. So this is where we last left off. The only difference that I have on this character is I did a little bit more cleanup. I added some more, form and edges along the limbs and just some overall cleanup. I didn't think I need to record, another 10 or so minutes of me just moving and manipulating. The other thing is you may be wondering why, we even bothered with this base mesh. One, from a practical standpoint, it's good to have an overall base mesh. So later we can, change the clothing, change the armor, and we have a fantastic model to work off of, right? If we were pinched for time, I'd say, yeah, definitely just model the clothes and move on. But it's good practice too, to be able to start from a cube and build up to something that looks very organic, very natural, has form and proportions in mind. And, again, we're referencing based off of a lot of the anatomy for sculptors reference. So, being able to start with something fairly primitive and build up to something that looks natural and organic is, the ultimate goal here. Okay, so I'm going to move this back on my other monitor and we can keep going. So what we're going to do now is we're going to model the gloves. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the faces here at the end of the arm and just delete. All right, now I'm not going to build off of the arm geo. Instead, we're going to build off from primitives. So let's go ahead now and create another cube. And let's get this guy in position. So I'm going to jump to my front view and kind of move, position, scale. Scale him out. There we go, something like this. Now I want it to be about as high as the fingers. And here, if you take a look, this is what we're building the hand off of, okay? We're taking a look at these cross sections. So red corresponds with about the halfway of the hand, the blue corresponds with the knuckles, and these, of course, are the fingers and the thumb, all right? So this is incredibly important to keep in mind. We're not just dealing with cubes and cylinders here. We need to make sure to add form as we go. It's also good to think about this in quadrants, right? So we have, obviously, the way the thumb attaches to the palm and the different forms, fold, fat, skin of the hand. Okay, so the palm is made of 3 pads, and that's what we're going to try to achieve here as we're modeling. All right, so I'm going to now jump to perspective view, and I'm going to just maybe scale this up a little bit or scale this down, and I think that this is good here, and we can start and work from here. So I'm going to go ahead to edge mode, and let's just select this ring of edges, and I want to connect. And with the connect tool, I'm going to hold middle mouse, and you can see I can drag left and right. So as I drag right, it is increasing the segments. And what I want to do is just add 3 segments, edge segments, and that's going to give me, 1, 2, 3, 4 faces. These are going to be where we're going to extrude our hand. So if I was doing an alien with 2 digits or 2 fingers, I'd only want 2. 3, so on and so forth. So here we want 4 fingers and a thumb. So we're just going to worry right now about kind of this cross section that we're modeling off of. So I'll go ahead now and take these 3 vertices here, these 3 edges, move these up, and grab this middle one and move it up a little bit more. Again, we're referencing this form here. So now that we have that, I can now go ahead and add in this edge right down the middle. And for the sake of keeping things clean, I'm going to scale this edge down just to keep it nice and flat. And if I grab these 2 edges here, I can now bring these up, right? And kind of just scale, well, maybe not bring them up. I'll scale them in and move them up, okay? So we have something like that, right? And we can bring this up in a little bit further. We even bring this down. I think this is good enough here, right? And so we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to bring this down and scale it in, right? So we're already starting to get a nice natural form that looks similar to this cross section of the hand that we're working from, right? That is course towards the back here, which is fine. And then now we're going to add some some more edges for the hand, okay? Because you can clearly see that it starts to taper in towards the wrist. So we're going to add a little bit of a taper, but remember, we are creating this inside of this glove, but this, you know, same rules still apply. So now that I have that, I will go ahead and add in a couple of edges with the multi-cut tool. So I'm going to hit spacebar, jump to the front view, and I'm going to add maybe an edge here and an edge here. Okay, so about a little bit evenly spaced, and we're going to kind of be ready for when we extrude out the thumb. Okay, I'm going to grab these end edges now to give it a little bit more form. You can see I only have these edges selected and scale these down. Okay, great. So far that's looking pretty good. And what we can do now is get ready and start setting up the fingers. Okay. So we're going to do the same exact approach, right? When you break things down, the more complicated the object, right? The simpler the forms can be, the further you break it down. So I'm going to go down to channel box and let's position our cylinder. So I'm going to move this guy up here towards the hand in the reference, rotate him about 90 degrees. That's fine. And then we're going to get ready to prepare this guy for extrusion. Now I'm going to give him some length here, about the height, I should say, of the hand, something like that. It should be fine. Yeah, we'll work with that. Now, of course, right, this was created with 20 segments, subdivisions, right? So let's go ahead and enable our wireframe unshaded, which is this icon here. And now just a quick sample. If you see, I want to just kind of work with these sets of faces here. And for example, if I extrude this out and get this ready, you know, to attach the fingers to, I have, you know, we can see here, you know, how many edges do we have? We have 6. Okay, so I would say let's go ahead and work with 6 edges on this hand. You can work with maybe 6 or 8, whichever one you're comfortable with. But for now, I'm going to keep it simpler and just work with 6 subdivisions. So let's go ahead now and set this to 6. Set this back to 1 on smooth preview. And let's get this guy in position. Okay, now again, he also needs to be quite a bit larger in radius, so I'm going to scale this up. And we have to keep in mind, you know, we do need this to kind of fit in next to each other. So I may need to also scale this out, right? Because he does have some stylized big old hands, right? Proportionately, they are quite a bit large. I mean, they're almost the size of his head, right? And if we take a look back with the original concept, right, or what I have modeled here, you can see that, you know, these are, again, fairly large hands. Now, I was planning to remove the hands once I built them. So, you know, we have some creative freedom here with how we, you know, the size of the hand, okay? So let's just go ahead and model it, and then we can scale it down later if need be. All right, so we have this set up, and what I want to do actually, as you can see, would be better if we rotated this about, instead of, we have 6, I'd say maybe about 30 degrees, okay? So that way the flat ends line up with the flat ends here, okay? Now if I go to the modeling toolkit, you see how my rotations, the move tool is based off the orientation of the object. If you don't like that, you can always go back to your modeling toolkit and set this back to world. Okay, there we go. So that's set up there. I like the overall size. Maybe I'll, you know, scale it down a bit. We can work with this right now. I think this is plenty fine. Okay, let's just work with this and we can scale it down. All right, so we have this kind of set up. Now, before I start duplicating, duplicating and moving, let's get one finger down before doing that, okay? Because that'll save us a ton of time down the road. So I'm gonna go ahead and select these edges here. And if you're looking at your own finger, you can see that it's essentially 3 different segments, all right? And I can connect, and you can see that we have 1, 2, 3. We actually want 1 less segments, right? Because we want 1, 2, 3. And we want this to have the rotations kind of built in instead of being perfectly straight. And I accidentally duplicated. So let me just select the one that I need to delete. Great. So I have this, and let's go ahead and just start rotating this guy in position. Okay. I am gonna work with this and just kind of select the vertices, rotate. Select the next sets of vertices and rotate on the finger. Okay, great. So that's looking pretty good so far. Then what I want to do is kind of give it that profile that we were looking at over here, right? Flat on the top, a bit more round and organic and bulbous on the bottom, right? And that you can see that's starting to take place here. All right, so I'm gonna select these. If I go into X-ray mode here, there's an icon. You can select these vertices or edges, and I'm gonna hold Control Shift, middle mouse drag this just a bit, where you can see we can get a little bit more of that form. And I'm gonna select these edges here and actually scale these out. Okay, so that's gonna give us some nice looking, a nice profile here. And again, ultimately, we're going to be kind of subdividing this as we need it, or as we see fit. Okay, and the other thing that I need to do is go ahead and give these guys some segments here. So I'm going to also add in some edges here in the middle of each one of these. And I'm going to grab these vertices. Actually, I'll do one at a time. Just kind of move these down. Like that, just kind of keep it aligned with that normal. And we're gonna edge slide this kind of at the end here and bring this top edge back as well. So we can already see it's starting to come through quite a bit natural. And then I can bring this up here. Okay, and we're gonna do the same thing with this, the top edge. Just bring that up just a little bit to give it a little bit more organic form. There, right? It's starting to look pretty good. These edges got a little bit skewed here, no big deal. Just kind of select them and Control Shift, slide them back. All right, that looks good there. Great, and then the last thing I'm gonna do is just select these edges here in the middle, right? We are modeling for deformation. So in the case of these knees and elbows, we are going to have to go back and add some more topology. But for now, we'll just focus on the fingers and do a bevel. So if you shift right click or select bevel here, either way, it's the same. We're going to really bring that fraction down to maybe 0.2 and add 2 segments. Okay. So there's that. And what I'm going to do is bring these up, move these on the normal just a bit. Control middle mouse drag for that. And then I'm also going to, you can see from the top view, it looks a little bit, quite a bit straight. And if you look at it again in our reference, right, you can see that there's a bit more shape. Again, we're not going through a 100%, you know, perfect anatomy, but we want to apply these techniques. That way, it's going to, you know, make sure that our character does look natural. And all I'm doing, again, is just kind of moving these out a bit, which is going to help with the overall form. I'll grab these end ones in too. Okay, now again, the character is wearing gloves, right? So it doesn't need to be super tight or, you know, super perfect, but I think we're onto something. I think we're making some good progress here. And I'm going to keep it just about like this, and I'm just using the reference for, you know, just a frame of reference. Okay, and what I want to do now is probably scale these guys out just a little bit to give him those kind of, you know, stylized large hands. And now we can go ahead and start combining this back to the original mesh, okay? And I would say this is going to be the finger, and as you can imagine, our middle finger is just going to be a hair larger. Our ring finger is going to be about the same size as the index finger, and then our pinky is going to be about kind of a third short of the ring finger, and we're just going to use that as a proportional guide. And then we'll get to the thumb, okay? So let's go ahead now and duplicate and move. Control D, duplicate and move. All right. Now I am going to actually hit insert now. This is the first time I'm going to be adjusting pivots, and move this pivot back to about the base of the finger. Scale, and now I can kind of scale this out. Now the thing is, I don't want to just scale it out too much uniformly. We do kind of want to just scale it out in the X, so it just increases the length without increasing too much. Okay, and don't worry, we're going to space these out here in a bit, and then let's go ahead now and do the same thing for the pinky. Okay, again, insert on the keyboard and just move this back to about the base of the hand, and we're going to just uniformly scale this to about, you know, something like that. Okay, and what I want to do, let's just space these fingers out now where they have some room to breathe between them. Something like that. Great. Okay, and we're about in line. I know that middle finger overall is a bit large, so what we can do is select all of these guys, Control G, all of these fingers, okay, and scale them down. Now keep in mind, our scale is back at the origin, so if you want to bring it back to about the center of this, let's go here to our polygon modeling tool and do center pivot. You can, of course, go to modify center pivot and use that there, or you can also find it here as well. Or I think actually, if I hold spacebar, you can just do a quick modify center pivot right here. All right, so multiple ways as usual to do the same thing. I'm going to scale this down just a bit. So our middle finger is about the size of the largest hand. Looks like that's good. And yeah, we're about back where we need to be. And I'm going to go back to the palm, scale this back out. All right, good. So there we are. We're making good, some good progress. And what we want to do now is, of course, attach these back to the original, to each other. All right, we want to attach the fingers to the base mesh. And I'm gonna also, yeah, we're gonna leave that. Let's go ahead and attach it. Okay. And what I want to do is move these sets of vertices back on the palm. And I'm gonna select these faces here and extrude. So hold shift, extrude face, move these out just a hair and give it a little bit of an offset, just a little bit, something like that. And then we can apply that 5 offset 0.1. So 0.25, 0.1, that looks like it'll work. And we can hit G and do the same thing. 0.25, 0.1. Again, you don't have to type in these exact values or values at all. We're just, quickly doing this so we can attach these. Okay, local translate 0.25 on the last one and offset 0.1. Great. And I'm going to select these faces here and just delete them. Great. Okay, so we have that. And what I'm going to do is grab our fingers again and just kind of get them aligned where the middle finger and ring finger are about aligned here. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and select the fingers. If you have the group selected, you can just simply select the faces here. You can actually multi-select them and then go to multi-select all the fingers and then go to faces. And then that'll allow you, that's kind of a nice trick to be able to select components on different objects. And then let's see, it'll let you delete them all on different objects, right? That's a nice way. I mean, we are going to combine them, so it wasn't too big of a shock, but it's helpful. Okay, so let's go ahead now. Before we combine, let's go ahead and just select the two. So the palm and one finger, Control 1, and let's start snapping vertices, okay? So I'm gonna grab the ones from the palm and have them snap to the fingers since they're already cylindrical, okay? So again, we're gonna use V. You can see it switch to vertex mode. Holding V, we're gonna just snap these vertices to the finger. And you can see why I did that little bit of an extrusion. It's just really helpful and gives us some room to select what we need, okay? And now that we've done that, I can also select kind of these outer edges here and move these on the outside, okay? Right there. And back this way. Cool. And we're just going to kind of follow that pattern there. All right, so select the palm again, Control 1, select the middle finger, or shift click the middle finger, Control 1, and let's do the same thing. We're going to select the palm, go to vertex mode, and start vertex snapping on the middle finger. Great, everything looks good. Once we combine it, we can, of course, we'll change kind of how it's attached. All right, now the ring finger, and we're gonna do the same thing. Select the palm, vertex select, move tool, and press V to start vertex snapping to the finger. It's a little bit hard to see. Again, just jump to X-ray mode here. These ones are getting a little bit close, but once we snap them, we'll be good to go. And what I'm gonna do actually is just go ahead and, while we have it, move the pinky over here a little bit. Okay, Control 1 to exit isolate mode, select the palm and the pinky, Control 1, and select the palm, vertex mode, and let's go ahead holding V in the move tool and start snapping them back, snapping them to the pinky. And I'm going to move this here in the middle between the ring finger and the pinky. Just going to move that over a little bit. Kind of space those out a little bit more. So it's going to ease that stretching. All right. So everything's looking good there. And we're going to do the same thing we did over here. Just quickly move these vertices. All right, now that we have everything combined, I'm going to simply select all 4 of these objects. Actually, before I do that, you know what? Let's select the finger and place the thumb, right? Because that'll save us some time for extracting and moving. So I'll select the index finger, Control D, move that. And I'm gonna just rotate that about 90 degrees. Let's jump to the channel box. That doesn't really matter. I'm gonna just position it roughly about here. And this one's gonna get a little bit interesting. The thumb is composed a little, quite a bit differently than the fingers. All right, but that's good. I'm just gonna leave that here for the finger and then, the thumb, and combine these fingers and palm together. All right, so now that I have all of those combined or selected, hold Shift, right click, combine. So this is the first time we're combining objects, or maybe not. Anyways, combine, boom. All right, now, instead of manually going in and selecting all of these vertices, what I'm gonna do is just hold right click, go to vertex mode, select everything, Shift, merge vertices, merge vertices. Remember, with a really low threshold, we'll be able to merge our vertices together. And then let's double check. Oh, guess what? So it didn't quite merge them together. You can see that they're right about there. Maybe I'll increase the threshold a bit. So 0.05, there we go. So 0.05 is still small enough that it welded all of these together. So now you can see I can double check, hit 3 on the smooth preview, and I'm looking for any open faces, and I don't see any. So that's great. Looks like that worked. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead, jump back here, and what we can do is kind of clean up the area that it attached to the hand. And there's a couple things we can do. We can just select these edges here that we used to attach them. I don't want to scale those up too much, but let me see if I just outright. Not too bad. Actually, if I'm gonna hold Control Shift, middle mouse drag them kind of back and forth, and you can see doing that will kind of still keep the original form and allow us to, you know, keep them separated, keep the edges separated instead of completely removing them. And then I'll just grab these top edges and I will, you know, essentially we're starting to create the knuckles a bit. Right, so I think this is good for now. Don't spend too much time here moving verts. I think you guys get the idea from the last tutorial. That went a little bit long, but no worries. We'll just do a little bit of cleanup here on the edges and then move on to the thumb. Okay, that's good enough for now. So onto the thumb. If we take a look at our reference here, right? So again, we can see the thumb is clearly, you can look at your own thumb, right? It's, you got essentially 2 segments here for the tip of the thumb and the base of the thumb, and then it attaches to the hand, okay? So that's kind of where that third segment comes from. But this is good enough. We can go ahead now, and I would say, let's just go ahead and Control 1. Actually, let me look at our, yeah, let's get it attached, and then we will outscale. So here we are. And what I'm going to do is actually delete the base, since we're going, this is now going to become the third segment. So I'll select this face here at the end of the thumb. And remember, Shift period a couple times, and that'll allow us to delete the base. And I can jump to the side view and really scale this up, and that's going to give us our nice big thumb. And just kind of rotate it in position. Okay. Something like this. And what I want to do now is actually do a little bit more manipulation on the vertices. Move this out here a bit. And let's go ahead actually and select the open face here at the end. And this is a good time. This is probably one of the few times I'll do a scale, shift scale. Sorry, I meant shift move. So shift, copy the edges. Okay. Tool's acting a bit weird, to be honest. Let's see. All I want to do is shift copy this. Okay, so I figured out what was causing that issue. So for whatever reason, Maya in the modeling toolkit doesn't like when you're in edge mode without actual another object over the x-axis. So just turn off symmetry. That was a problem. So once you turn off symmetry, we can select these edges and hold shift and then now kind of scale these out like that, which is good. And this is essentially going to be what is attaching the base of the hand. Okay, and just kind of move. I'm just moving, manipulating. You can see how this is going to come into the hand here. All right. Now, the nice thing is if I select these edges here, you can see we have 6 edges selected. If I go to the thumb now, or sorry, the base of the hand, I want the same thing. So I want the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are going to be the 6 edges that I attach. But the thing that makes this a little bit different is that I don't want them to completely like essentially attach here at the end and extrude out. The thumb actually, if you take a look at your own hand, you can see that it really starts coming out of kind of this this pad of the hand. So that's going to help us again keep things a little bit anatomically accurate, excuse me. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and select these faces here so I can prepare for that extrusion. All right, and I'm going to do a shift extrude, shift right click extrude, and offset here a bit. There, look at that. So now we've gave it some thickness, translate. I'm going to move this into position here. And we can see how that's going to help give us the form that we need. Now, of course, I will go ahead and just delete that because we're attaching to an open face. Control 1, let's go back and grab the thumb. Now you might be saying, what the heck? This has 6 and our palm has 8. So that means we do have to add in a couple edges to the thumb. But that's a lot less work than having to build it from scratch, right? So again, if I select the thumb, you can see that I have the 6 here. And let's go ahead. I think probably what would be easier. Then we have the 8 here. Let's just start attaching this, the thumb, and vertex snapping, and then we'll add edges where we need them, all right? So I'm going to grab these 2 at the top of the thumb and start snapping them back to the base of the hand. Jump to X-ray mode here, and start to see where we need a little bit more edge and edges here. So I'm going to snap these at the base. Yeah, I'll move this one actually up here. And what I am going to do is, we can keep that open just like that. All right, I'm going to grab this edge now and just kind of slide it over, essentially giving myself room. I'm going to actually use a new tool, which is pretty cool as well. So this one is here. Okay. We'll move this over here. To the left, relatively speaking. Okay. And we're going to make some room here. All I'm doing right now is just Control Shift sliding vertices to give myself more room. Okay. So we can come back once we add that and kind of adjust the original form and cross section of the thumb. But if you go here, let me see, we may have it in this edge, right? We can now use what's called the Insert Edge Loop tool. Now, this isn't the multi-cut tool, okay? So the multi-cut tool is this, and it's fantastic. We can cut in and do all sorts of things. But if I hold Shift and then instead grab Insert Edge Loop tool and go to the tool settings and enable Insert with Edge Flow, move that over here to the right. Watch what this is about to do. Boom. See that? It adds edges and conforms to the curvature that we have existing. So I don't have to worry about moving on the normals or readjusting some vertices. And look at that. It almost fits in perfectly with the existing geo. So I can go ahead now and snap that back here. Right? And we can grab this vertice and snap that here. Great. So, you know, it looks a little bit wonky, but we're going to just combine, merge, and clean up some topology. So I select now the two objects, right? Take a look at our outliner, right? It's quite a bit dirty now. Shift, right click, combine, and then before going any further, delete history. Boom. Look at that. Outliner is completely cleaned up, and we can drop this hand right in back with the group. Okay. Control 1. Now we do want to just call this, you know, character group. And, you know, before moving on, right? So there we are. Let's just jump back here. Looks like our thumb is about the right size, which is, or length. Now we can just adjust the overall volume. Okay. So let's go ahead now. And again, I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but we're just going to clean up and do some vertex manipulation. And before I do that, let's combine and merge these verts. So just select these vertices that we used to combine back to the thumb. Hold Shift and merge vertices. And you know what? Let's see. 0.03 should work, but let's see. Perfect. All right. I guess I moved the other ones last time, but that's neither here nor there. Now we can use that technique of kind of edge sliding these back and forth to kind of help with, you know, conforming it back in between the two. There, see that? So that does help kind of alleviate some, but we have to make sure, remember, right, if this is where this kind of bends, we really got to make sure to, you know, have this look like the thumb here, right? So I do want to make sure now, if this is the top of the thumb here, right, that's this kind of this section here. Of rotation there. Okay, and I'm gonna just move on the normal, control middle mouse drag, add some volume. Line here. And we want this to look natural, so I am gonna select this one, completely remove that. And I'm gonna go a bit off of the reference right now and just get this thing looking the way that it should. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm just kind of using the viewport based rotation, and I'm going back and forth and just kind of rotating it. That's a tricky thing about the thumb, is that it does it is kind of coming out at an angle and whatnot. So you can see we have that kind of moving, adjusting this, and probably going to move this edge here out towards the base, and then I'll delete this one. Okay, so I'm gonna again just kind of move some edges around, and I am gonna again, we're straying a little bit off of the original reference because I want to get this proportionately done. And then we can scale up the glove as we see fit. So I'm going to hit W here and kind of scale it down. And one thing that's going to help, right, you can kind of see how it's attaching. It's kind of at a 90-degree angle. What I'm going to do is move this edge back, and we can always add another one in here after the fact, right? And that's going to help give us a much more natural joining to the thumb here, or attaching essentially the thumb to the hand. Okay, the thumb to the rest of the hand. Here we go. So I'm just, again, grabbing some vertices here, and we're gonna, instead, you kind of see how it's almost, if I just jump to this top view, you see how it's kind of angling towards the thumb. I'm just gonna rotate it where it's not doing that. Have that, just looking a bit better. W, a little bit moving on the normal a bit more. R, so far so good. And again, just some vertex cleanup, all right? So we're almost there. Here. Now you can see how it's the thumb is attaching to the palm, and it makes a lot more sense instead of just having it extrude straight from the side. All right, so I won't, again, try to stay away from too much vertex manipulation, but I think we're on the right track. And what I want to do is essentially give us a little bit more palm. If I move this out, you can see how it was just we didn't have a lot, right? It was like this, right? That palm was way too short. So again, if we're looking at reference, you guys, we're looking at here, you can see how much of the palm starting from the base of the fingers essentially to the wrist. And we needed quite a bit here. So we can also grab these ones at the base of the thumb, these verts at the base of the thumb, moving that out there a little bit, and moving these guys here to give us that natural form. Just slide some of these edges back with Control-Shift middle mouse. Good enough for now. We can add more edges of later. I'm not too worried either about the base or the point tips of these fingers. They're not going to deform. I'm only worried about the knuckles. That's why I said triangles are fine, as long as you don't have them in areas that are going to deform. All right, so I can always clean up these edges later, focus on the form. And the last thing I want to do, of course, is finish off the glove here. So I'm going to move these actually out. And I'm going to select the thumb. Let's see, now that we're looking at this in 3D, I may or may not want to stick with this next move. And I just want to give it more volume. Does this look? Yeah, I think that looks fine, right? Here's what it was before. A little bit more. Just to kind of help give it that stylized look where he's going to really be grabbing on some stuff. So yeah, we can work with that, and I can always change that later if need be. Okay, so let's go ahead now and grab, tab, left click to kind of spray paint these selections, Control click anything else. And we're gonna Control E, extrude these back. This is now the wrist, shooting it for the wrist. So here we are. And what I want to do from this point is select now these faces here around the base of the glove, which we just created. And let's see. We can use another tool, which I really like, which is called circularize. So let's select these faces here. Okay, hold Shift, right click, and let's see if they're here. Circularize components. Great. Boom, look at that. It turns it into a perfect cylindrical shape, which is great because this is essentially where it's going to be combining back into the glove. So I'm going to take it right about here, the base of the glove. Kind of just scale this out. It won't be a perfect circle, but I think the idea. And grab this edge, move it in. So it's not too much. Okay. So we're back here. And Control E, extrude. I'm going to move this back. And this is now the base of the glove. Great. So we're going to select these faces here, this face loop, and Shift, Extrude E, or Control E, whichever one you want to do, right? Extrude these out. Now we're about here. Extruding the glove out. And great, I think this is fine. Control 1. Now let's worry about attaching it to the hand. So we're going to stray off of the reference a little bit since we're kind of where we need to be, at least for this glove. And I'm going to grab these faces here, right? Remember, you can tab, left click, and jump to X-ray mode. Make sure you select these. Let's make sure to deselect these. So Control, Marquee, select that. Any faces that you don't want, and we're going to Control E now and move these in. Okay, back to X-ray mode or off X-ray mode. And we're just going to move this in and offset it because we'll eventually position that as we need fit or texture it or whatever. And there you go. Okay, I'm going to turn off faces. And that's pretty close. You can see I want to make sure to align the wrist, the hand with the actual wrist here. So I am going to move it down just a bit, and that actually works out pretty well. Okay, there's a little bit that still needs to happen here with, just kind of moving things in a bit. Making it not a perfect cylinder. Not only that, but we need to jump to this, the hand here. You may have looked like, well, that's kind of flat, right? It certainly is. So now that we have this, we can, start increasing and bringing some volume here. Right? And of course, we can jump to the bottom of the hand, the palm of the hand. And we can start moving these down, bring these over again, start pulling these up without adding too much geometry, keeping things clean. Okay, and then you hit 3 and you can kind of see where we're at. We'll come back and do some detailing here, but all in all, I think we're about there. We can actually do that right now. So I'm gonna Control middle mouse drag that. And what I want to do is just grab these guys and do a quick bevel, maybe 0.25, 2 segments. There we go. So that really gives us some nice organic look, round look. And we want to do the same thing inside here on the inside of the glove. I'm going to actually isolate this so we can see this unobstructed. Oh yeah, let's move some verts here. And we're going to select these edges and we're going to do another bevel. Okay. And this time again, maybe 0.25, tighten these up, 2 segments. So that's going to help us really hold that form. Okay. Maybe that was a little bit too tight. You can actually change those settings here after the fact. So the offset was, or the fraction was 0.25. Maybe I'll do like 0.4. Great. All right. And then last bit here, I will just quickly add a multi-cut. And I think we're good for now. We'll come back and we can maybe do some detailing later. Or I can do some detailing later. But yeah, look at that. All in all, not too bad. Some work. I'll try to restrain myself from, vertexing and changing some things and whatnot. But I think overall, we're looking good. This is looking a little bit too hard surface. Maybe I'll do something about that. But anyways, yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, whatever. We can work with that. And if you're happy with how it looks and everything, you can Control D to duplicate, Control G to group it, jump to your channel box editor and do a -X. Sure. All right, we got the hands. So we're going to do the boots next. And then after the boots, we're going to jump to probably what everyone's been waiting for, which is the head. So yeah, got any questions, comments, or even tips? Go ahead and drop them down below in the comments. Thanks, everyone. Bye.